what's up everybody? Justin here to review you one of my favorite racing games of all time, Initial D Special Stage for the PlayStation 2. If you've been following me since my old YouTube channels, which have unfortunately been suspended for the last 15 years or so, then you know that I've reviewed a good chunk of the original anime back in those days. Thankfully, I still have those reviews on my Dailymotion account, which I will link. Shortly after I got into the original anime, back in 2001, Sega's arcade series had just released, and I was in Japan when they were first released upon that year. So I just had to check it out. Up until that point, I had just barely seen First Stage, but I was still excited to try out this game. And a few months later, it got an international release, and there have been rumors that Tokyo Pop's controversial name changes may have stemmed from this game, and not Tokyo Pop themselves. But I don't know for sure, nor do I care, because I refuse to acknowledge how these characters were renamed in those versions. But anyway, the original arcade games got upgrades, as most arcade games do these days, by adding more characters and courses, and it was only a matter of time before it would get a console release, and 2 years after its arcade debut, it would get ported to the PS2. For this release, it features cars, characters, and courses, which goes up to 4th stage of the anime. In fact, this game was released about 10 months before 4th stage would premiere, at least the first course of 4th stage. What's also cool is that through this game, you also got something of a preview of who was playing who. For example, this was the first time you would hear, let's say, Toshiyuki Morikawa as Daiki and Megumi Toyoguchi as Kyoko. In addition, it's obvious to conclude that the cast from the original series also reprised their roles in this game. For example, Shinichiro Miki is back as Takumi, and Takehito Koyasu is back as Ryosuke, and everybody else and their mother. Well, except Takumi's, because he doesn't have a mom. Before you challenge a racer, there will be mini cutscenes with the characters taking up your challenge, and within the game, the character will recite lines from the original series or come in relation to their positions within the race.
ずいぶん走り込んだな。俺もガスねえや。何時だ今？もうすぐ4時ですよ。よっしゃ、ぼちぼち引き上げだ。本気で飛ばすとついてこれねえだ。まだまだだな、あいつらも。1台来た。どっちだ？違う。うちのチームの車じゃねえ。何者だ？暗くて車種までは分かんねえな。 MR2 か180。でかい車じゃなさそうだ。上等じゃねえか。コーナー2個も抜けりゃバックミラーから消してみせるぜ。冗談じゃねえ。それが俺は赤木レッドカップのナンバー2だと。振り切れない。悪い夢でも見てんのか。86だと。ふざけんな。なんてこった。スピードが乗りすぎてるぜ。立て直して減速するスペースはない。先を知らないのか。減速して入らないと谷底へ真っ逆さまだぞ。
The game has 3 simple game modes: Legend of the Streets, which is where you pick a car of your choosing and challenge virtually every character from first through the first half of 4th stage, and you also have the basic time attack to test yourselves, and for each stage you can race uphill or downhill, or choose to race between day or night, and clear or rainy. And by playing through the Legend of the Streets and time attacks, you can gain points to upgrade your car by, let's say, getting turbo for your engine, or getting a nicer gull wing for your FR car. If you choose, let's say, Takumi's Hachiroku, you can pretty much upgrade it like his and eventually get the racing engine he gets at the end of 2nd stage, and the carbon hood he gets at the beginning of 4th stage. There's also the story mode, where you pretty much play the original series as Takumi and Keisuke, and on some occasions, or at least once, as Ryosuke. In the story mode, it will replicate certain challenges featured in the anime and manga, which might be difficult to figure out for players not familiar with them. For example, when you race Shingo, it will be under the gun tape deathmatch rules, so steering will intentionally be more difficult than usual. Or when you test run the new engine with Wataru, fans will know that the problem is with the tachometer.
見せてもらうぜ。群馬エリアで負けなしと言われた実力の片鱗をな。
But if anyone is coming to this without any exposure to the source material, they likely won't know that, and you will be challenged by them. But if you're someone more familiar with cars, you might be able to make that conclusion. In some instances, such as when Keisuke races Nakazato, you will have to stay behind the opponent until the fourth section of a track. So in this sense, you are getting a true experience to the original source material of Initial D. Most of the cars featured are from Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Subaru, and Mazda. In other words, JDM or the Japan domestic market. The courses are easy versions of Myogi and Usui, Akagi, Akina, Irohazaka, Hapogahara, Momochi Line, Shomaru, and the real versions of Momochi and Usui as presented in the anime, and NS Skyline. Your only views are first person and third person. When it comes to racing games, I prefer first person, and the view allows me to look at certain signs to prepare me for certain things. Like for example on Akina, if I see a certain sign, it means I'm about to approach a corner and I should be ready to drift. And I know there's a map that I can reference, but like driving in real life, you need to keep your eyes on the road. But upon finishing a round, you can watch your race or time attack again in replay mode in a more cinematic manner, and it gives you an experience like watching the original anime. One major criticism I have of this game is that it's one player only. However, there is an indirect way of addressing this. For example, in the time attack mode, you can save your ghost, and then when you switch with somebody, they can race against your ghost to beat your record. Yeah, I know it's not the same, but it's the best way to make do. And honestly, I don't know if you could ever play this game in a split-screen mode like you can in your traditional console racing games. And another major criticism I have is it's just really awful to play on an HDMI TV with an HDMI connection. When I play this game, the stages on the night modes, you can't see shit. It looks god-awful. But if you have something called a D-terminal connection, which was, I think, Japan only, it looks really good on an HD TV. It's sort of like the equivalent to, let's say, VGA. But I don't have anything that can connect to my video card to record footage to my Mac that could replicate that, so I had to make do with what I got. However, it still looks great on a CRT TV, which I do own. And there's also a special theater mode where you can pick a car, and Ikitani, played by Kazuki Yao, who recently retired from playing Frankie on One Piece, will give you the lowdown on such and such car.
トレノ GT アペックス AE86 1983年にデビューしたスプリンターのスポーツモデルがこのトレノ、通称86だ。トレノに搭載されている 4AG は高回転型の DOH エンジンでこの車のために開発されます。軽快なエンジンフィールド、軽量コンパクトなボディサイズの組み合わせは峠にジャストフィットで当時の走り屋から絶大な支持を受けたんだ。しっかりチューンされた86は今でも下りなら十分な戦闘力を秘めていることを匠が証明してくれてるかな。匠の親父さんも言ってるけど、86はドライバーを育てる車なんだ。
And by achieving certain things, you can unlock certain songs from the original anime. And what would Initial D be without the Eurobeat? Considering 4th stage wouldn't be out for another 10 months, all the tracks featured here come from 1st through 3rd stage, such as Space Boy, No One Sleeps in Tokyo, Night of Fire, Crazy for Love, Grand Prix, and so on, and they're featured for you to jam while driving to. While I always feel that any driving or racing game should be played on a steering wheel, the game is relatively easy to play on a regular PS2 controller. Well, let me rephrase that. Simple, but not easy, at least for me. You just simply push X to accelerate, square to brake, and naturally you have the options of playing manual or automatic, but you get a more authentic experience by playing manual. And if you choose to use manual, you just use the right shoulder button to shift up, and the left shoulder button to shift down. Beyond that, the game is a true representation of the original anime and manga. It's not as realistic as Gran Turismo, but is appropriately gimmicky in context to the original anime to make it really fun, especially if you're a pre-existing fan. For example, you can gutter grip for better traction like Takumi does on the 5 hairpins of Akina. Or in Irohazaka, you can jump the corners like Kai did in 3rd stage. And it also has that final gutter. Also, especially for the night races, you can turn off your lights and do a blind attack just like Takumi did in 4th stage. Once you learn how to operate your vehicle, I say use the time attack modes to study the courses. Like in the anime and in real life racing, you should not only know how to use your car, but intensively know how the courses function. It should help you know when to shift down, brake and drift, and so on. Know where the openings are to get the lead because these roads can be narrow and hard to get that lead. If a course has many turns, it'll probably be more advantageous to use an FF car or a front-wheel drive car. In certain instances, 4-wheel drive might be more appropriate for certain courses and conditions. But if you want the best acceleration, control, and drifting, rear-wheel drive might be the best in my opinion. You can have an underperforming car compared to, let's say, the latest Lancer Evolution, but if you know how to control it under the conditions you race in, then it should be of no issue for you. As I said before, using a steering wheel is most ideal, but if you can't get one, using a controller works fine, but at times, depending on my speed and angle, I tend to oversteer or understeer on corners a lot. But I have this issue on a less frequent basis whenever I use a steering wheel controller because you have more precise controls with a racing one. The game is pretty much in Japanese, and if you're not familiar with the story, then it'll be hard to get into, but if you have an intimate pre-existing knowledge of Initial D, then you pretty much know what's going on. The language barrier can be overcome with just simple trial and error, but isn't 100% necessary to enjoy the meat and bones of this game. Naturally, this caters more to the racing game fans if they want something more novel with the inclusion of Eurobeat and the gimmicks of the courses, which adds more to the challenge and learning curve. For fans, as I said before, you're going to get the ultimate Initial D experience, and you feel like you're within its world. Except not like that one move video. Just like pre-PlayStation 3 consoles, this game only works on Japanese PS2s and will require a converter to play on non-Japanese consoles. I tend to see the game on average priced between 2,500 yen and 4,500 yen, depending on where you find it and whatever the condition it's in. And I know that there are some versions where the cover's just Takumi's face, and that kind of goes a little higher, but it's still functionally the same game. For the steering wheel controller, expect to pay anywhere between 3,500 yen and 4,500 yen for that one as well. And lastly, please remember that Initial D is a work of fiction, and whenever you're driving, please drive safely and obey all traffic laws. And until then, take care of yourselves and each other.